So, you've recently started speedrunning Super Mario Odyssey. After watching one of the excellent beginner tutorial series for the 80% category, you got a few full game runs under your belt. The first one, well, it probably went pretty poorly, but that's okay. Time save for the next run, right? Your next few runs were likely pretty easily personal bests, and just like that, you probably already boast a respectable PB. But after a while, you start to notice that you're resetting a bit more often than you used to. Like, you're way better than a 244 cap by now, but this damn right side movement, Mario keeps bonking. And, well, it's not that you don't know the route for wooded, but you're getting to the point where you want to be a bit more exact about the movement you're going to do. After all, movement is what saves minutes, so it might be time you want to start practicing individual levels to really take your skill up a notch. So how do we go about this? You could pull up your post-game file, but all the moons are already collected and the scenario is always a bit different all over the place. Ideally, we want to go to any point in the 80% run. Although you can do this with the practice mod, you might not be able to mod your Switch, nor want to go through the trouble of finding a moddable one. This is where practice files come in, the heart and soul of Odyssey practice, and maybe even IL runs if you want to lose your sanity. Firstly, it's important to understand how file management in Odyssey works. On every Switch profile, Odyssey can hold 5 save files. If the Switch can have 8 user profiles, we can actually store quite a number of different save games on the one system. For practice files, the basic principle is to have one file per split, but on each profile of 5 saves, keep one empty. This is important because there's no way to disable autosave in this game, so the second you collect a moon on a save file, it's gone. But what we can do is save the fresh file in the disposable slot and preserve it for indefinite practice. Here's an example of a profile of saves. Here we can practice Cascade, Sand, Lake, and Wooded. This Wooded file is currently at the end of Lake with all moons collected but not deposited yet. So if you want to practice or do a Wooded IL, we'll first load the file, save it to the empty file slot, and then throw Cappy on the globe to begin the powering up sequence. At this point, we're basically about to start the wooded split like an 80%, so if you're doing a timed IL, you can start the timer here, play the split, and stop the timer here, or you can just play through the kingdom for practice. When you've finished, load the file that you saved in the disposable slot, save over the completed wooded file, and then you can globe Cappy again and rinse and repeat. There are a few exceptions for other splits that I'll cover in a bit, but this is the basic procedure for most kingdoms. Now let's go over actually setting up the files. We can follow this plan which only requires 4 Switch user profiles, but of course you can change this depending on whether or not you have 2 splits for Metro and Bowser's or whatever you want. We can skip Cap because you can just start a new game in whatever profile you use for full game attempts. We can also skip making a file for Cloud because we want to do Cloud ILs. You'll also see in a sec how we can practice the Cloud fight in the Lost file. First, we want to create the Switch user profiles, which you can do when you open a game or through here in the settings. You can name the profile something like CSLW or Cap through Wooded, so you know what files you have where. With the new profiles created, go ahead and boot one up. When you first create new Odyssey data in a profile, you'll be taken straight to the new game button, so we can just start a new game, wake up Mario, and fix the settings to how you like them. These are the settings most people use for runs. Once all that is done, we can start saving the files. For a Cascade file, what I like to do is just play through Cap and collect the Top Hat Tower checkpoint. I'm pretty sure this is the closest you can save to the start of the Cascade split, because you have to get there via the wire and you can't save after defeating Topper. Save this file into the next slot and then continue through the game. The general procedure for setting up the Sand file is what you'll do for most kingdoms. You could just get all the moons and stop before globing, but if you can be bothered, most people recommend that you get all the required moons less 1, deposit them, and then hold the last one so that the powering up cutscene is a bit quicker for each use of the file. What you do is up to you. You can do the same thing for setting up the Lake and Wooded files. By now, we'll need to switch to the next user profile, so load up the game again, change the settings, and play through the game until you're back where we need to be. It will take a while to set everything up because you'll have to do this a few more times, but it's good practice, I guess. For Lost, the best I can come up with is just to save before the Cloud fight because most people split somewhere during the cutscenes right after defeating Bowser. The Night Metro file can just be the end of Lost like normal, and then for Day Metro what you can do is get to the City Hall rooftop checkpoint and save there because for some reason the game won't let you save in between defeating Mecha Wiggler and collecting the multi-moon. Don't forget to get the moons you normally would in Night Metro, or else a Day Metro IL won't end properly. Do the standard procedure for files for Snow, Seaside, Luncheon, Ruined, and the start of Bowser's, although there's no way to do the Hold One Moon technique in Ruined. If you want a separate file for the mech subsplit in Bowser's, you can actually defeat both Broodals to spawn in the story moon, and then save before collecting it. Again, just don't forget to get all the moons you normally would in Bunnies so that finishing the mech split works. Finally, your moon file is just the end of Bowser's, and that'll be it. This is one way you can set up some nice practice files for all your practicing needs. There are a couple things you can do differently depending on your circumstances. If you don't intend on doing timed IL runs, your file for any given kingdom can just be at the start of the kingdom instead of setting up for going through the tech smashing and cutscenes. Even so, you can still do timed ILs on such a file if you begin the run with an offset that accounts for the start of the split. It's a valid way of doing some ILs quicker, it's just not my personal preference. Finally, if you look at my practice files, you see I have files set up for the different scenarios you encounter in the World Peace category. If you run World Peace and have subsplits after the multi-moons in some bigger kingdoms, for example what I call Clearwooded and Foggywooded, you can set up additional practice files for these extra scenarios that you don't come across in any major capacity in any percent. I won't go through in detail how to set these up because the basic principles are the same. Save as close as you can to where the start of the split is, and just make sure the right moons are collected on the files you use for any percent and for World Peace. You can also have practice files for post-game categories like Dark and Darker, which I think just involve getting a file to Mushroom and going to where you need to via the paintings or the Odyssey, but I'm not really the one to ask because I don't run any post-game categories. Not yet, anyway. And that just about covers it. If you have any questions or suggestions on top of the ideas I presented, you can leave a comment. Hope this helps, and happy speedrunning.